So our next speaker is Juliette Saunders from the Elim Housing Group. And Juliette is Group Head of Development. So just while Craig is helping Juliette with the tech setup, I'm just going to introduce Juliette to us all. So Juliette joined the Elim Housing Group in 2019 and is responsible for the sourcing, acquisition and delivery of Section 106 and land-led development opportunities for affordable housing, including small private development opportunities for Elim's commercial subsidiary, Lime Property Ventures. Juliette is a qualified general practice surveyor, studied and qualified in Bristol, and initially specialised in commercial surveying, but has spent the last 20 years in residential development roles in the private sector prior to joining Elim in 2019. So Juliette, over to you.
Hi everyone, good afternoon, thanks Linda. And thanks Neil, from Places to People to a smaller organisation. Elim are a smaller, known as one of the smaller registered providers, well, in the area nationally, really. So I thought it would be useful for you to have a perspective from a smalls point of view, and the development function and a bit of insight. So if I just move on. So my first covering slide is literally what we are. We are very diverse and agile, and we have to be in the accommodation we provide now. As sort of heard all morning and early part of the afternoon, you know, we have to provide accommodation that suits, is innovative and obviously very inclusive. And that's where we really have that specialist niche, I think, as a small housing provider. So today I'm just going to talk you through where we are and what we're going to go and what we're moving on to projects in the next probably 5 years. So we have a growth sort of delivery program over the next 5 years, growing on a small scale, but in the important parts that really matter, providing that inclusive, accessible accommodation. So at the moment we're just under 1,000 homes. If I just put into sort of context for you here, those are our numbers, not quite to date, because we've completed on 2 more shared ownership properties on Friday, so we've got 46. But you can see the majority is general needs, which is basically made up of sort of social rent and affordable rented homes and shared ownership, which we tend to have through land-led and Section 106 purchases primarily. So we do build our own sites out, but we don't have that facility in-house because we are quite small, so we tend to put out those sort of build contracts and use external consultants, and we're working with Agile on a few projects at the moment, just on that side of things. And I thought, did Craig say costs were going down, Pat, earlier? Oh, I thought I caught something there earlier, but anyway, we'll talk about that. But yeah, so, and the supported houses, this is where our vulnerable people fit into the homelessness categories, vulnerable parents, mums, ladies, men, refugees. So we have all that accommodation, primarily based Gloucester, North Somerset, South Gloucester and Bristol. So we're quite a tight area, but overall that provides us with a very efficient and effective management of the properties as well from head office in North Bristol. We've got student lettings, which is part of the LPV portfolio, Lime Property Ventures. So that's the commercial subsidiary that owns that and acts as a private developer and just has this an investment property. Gypsy and Traveller, which we're expanding quite dramatically throughout the country, actually is one of the biggest providers now. That's not my speciality, but it comes under development just because I do look at the sites and obviously have an input on the development process and the land that we purchase. And then we also have that category of managed properties, which we manage on behalf of primarily local authorities and some other providers. So that just gives you a bit of context on our numbers. So yeah, in comparison to Places to People, we're one of the smalls, and they're obviously a larger provider. So what I wanted to concentrate on today is the specialist supported housing and the transforming care program that the government announced a few years ago. And that's really where we are really moving forward as an organisation and providing that specialist support to those people that require additional additional assistance in their properties, whether it be through learning difficulties, accessibility. So we have a few schemes on the go at the moment that probably started a couple of years ago, and they're just taken a while to come through. Tend to take quite a time for these, well, generally the schemes to come through, but these in particular. So the key things for me I just listed. They're quite straightforward, simple slides, but I thought it's just useful to have the key things listed. Specialist supported housing projects that we have at the moment. We've got 4 that we're concentrating on. One is an adaptation just in Bristol, just a straightforward adaptation, which isn't so straightforward, but it probably is the simplest project we'll deal with specialist supported. So it's an existing 3-bedroom bungalow that we're providing a home for a lady that's based up north at the moment and has been in hospital for 16 years. So we're bringing her back into the community, hopefully very early next year, to provide her first home with her own front door, close back to her family in Bristol. So that's a real pilot for Elim, and that will be coming through, as I say, hopefully by spring next year. We've got literally just the solicitors to deal with that now. All the adaptations have been agreed, and obviously with each of these cases they have special care plans that we sit very tightly and closely with the requirements. Just talking about need, there is a huge need, as you're all aware in the room, and I was only reading an article the other day that said there are 2,000, I think it's 2,000 people with learning disabilities and autism in a hospital waiting, just waiting to come into the community, that should be in the community, to help, grow and have those opportunities. So there is a huge need, and it does come that we have to provide certain properties that meet their requirements, and they're primarily 1 and 2 bedroom properties, accessible, sustainable, and hitting obviously carbon zero targets as well. And then the specifics of the schemes, they really do have a lot of specifics that you obviously have to take into account compared to a normal development, which really focuses on those individuals, their care plans, and the support provided and required. So we look in great detail at the site, the boundaries, the surrounding communities, anything that we can put externally into the development that will help, and then also obviously internally, the property has to have real detailed design, worked around a lot of requirements by each individual rather than just sort of a group requirement. So there are lots of specific designs internally and externally, even down to where we put kitchens, where we place the bathrooms, sight lines through properties, corners of a sort of bend and corners in rooms can't be sort of really sharp, and the really important thing, paint color choices, all those sort of things are really, really important, together with obviously accessibility. And then a huge thing in the projects we do is obviously collaboration, which we've all talked about today, but that's massive for us, from local authorities, the planning, enabling teams, social care, adult care, care and support teams, and then also the people that are really on the ground with these individuals, like the physios, the occupational therapists, the doctors. So that team coming together, and for us, supporting us financially, as well as the whole process, NHS England and also Homes England, collaborating with all those sort of stakeholders and individuals. So what I was going to do now is just go through a case study with you, just to show how we are sort of kick-starting these processes locally. This is a scheme in South Gloss. As I say, we've got 3 schemes in Bristol. The 2 other schemes in Bristol are for the ones for 6 properties, brand new. We haven't bought the site yet, we've gone into planning, but 6 properties brand new for learning disabilities and autism on a development, which will bring, that one's actually for younger people. So that's not to bring people out of hospital, that's actually to prevent them going into hospital. So that's for younger people, which probably from the age of 16 to maybe 25, that are living with carers or parents at the moment, but actually could end up in hospital because now they're getting bigger and stronger, and maybe the carers or the parents can't sort of look after them anymore. So the scheme for 6 in Bristol is to actually help prevent them going into hospital. And then there's another scheme in Bristol that we're looking at for mental health patients, which are coming out of hospital again. 8 of those will be brand new for people coming out of hospital, plus 4 move on the site. So going from very specialist support to a higher support, but staying on site, so they still have that safe sort of social feeling. And security. So really overall, we're trying to provide homes rather than hospitals. And as I say, if I just move on to the case study here, this is one in South Gloss, which we've recently got a planning consent for. It's all single story, as you can see. It's 0 carbon rated, living roofs, really well thought through scheme. Behind the scheme, the white, is actually a new development which will go up for 50 homes. So we're at the start of a development site. We've got planning consent recently. As I say, the infrastructure should go in within the next 3 to maximum of 6 months, and then there'll be 50 new homes beyond this site. But this is in the community of Oldland Common, residential around. It's on the edge of the green belt, so we're very careful in the design and the boundary treatments for planning reasons, contextual reasons, but also from the residents' perspective. So we've looked at huge detail here with care plans for individuals coming here. This is for complex care needs. So these are people that are coming out of hospital and probably will have either 2 or 3 carers each. So the block at the front is actually a staff building which will have offices, shower, bed facilities, because there's 24/7 care there. And as I say, each individual's probably got 2 to 3 carers. But the whole purpose of this is to do exactly what we've been discussing earlier, is to bring those people out into the community, to start integrating them, getting them out of hospitals, and just giving them the opportunities that they really should have in life to thrive and to grow. All fully accessible, obviously the scheme completely accessible, and it's completely giving them that opportunity that otherwise they may not have. So. And also the important thing we found is, to give them that identity, to have their own front door, not all going into a communal access. So they will have their own front door in their own property. And that will then obviously assist with visiting friends and family and having friends and family to visit. Also, all the other social activities, which a lot of us just take for granted, that, they just don't have where they are at the moment. So employment, training, and other just general opportunities in life. So this scheme's come together with South Gloss, Bristol, Homes England, NHS England, and then a lot of other sort of care and support provider, and South Gloss obviously as well. And we're looking at it from a freeholder. We've got the planning consent on the site, so we will implement and push for the scheme to get constructed as soon as possible, get the access in, and get all the properties constructed. And then what we will do is Elim will then own and manage the site. We don't provide the care, so that's that separate sort of care and support provider will have that commissioned, and we will just manage the properties. But the main thing is obviously bringing these through. They take a long time to come through. These properties are EPC A rated, air source heat pumps, living roofs, and obviously accessible, safe and secure environments, so extremely sustainable as well. And I think from this, our overall view is we do have quite a niche in the affordable housing sort of sector, in the fact that we do provide and work on quite small sites, but they are very specific and they do meet those needs that we've been talking about all day. We don't just build houses to house people in. We build houses to make sure that people live in them and are happy and safe and actually can live properly in their home. And I think our overall concept, I guess, for these homes is to help people thrive and achieve their goals in the community, which is hopefully what all these new homes will do. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juliette. And that was a really nice and interesting contrast between the 2 scales of operation, actually, to understand the degree of diversification that you're involved in, quite a specialist area. Thank you. So any questions for Juliette?
Thank you very much, Juliette. And Elim also works very closely with traveller communities. Could you talk a little bit about Elim's work in that space? You can use that one now.
Hello? Yeah, Craig, to be honest, that's not my speciality, I'm afraid. We are covering a huge part of the country now, beyond our operating area. We're going down to Devon, and we're reaching out to quite large areas, and local authorities are actually coming to us to search for sites for the travellers. I get involved in the development aspect, so literally looking at the site from that development angle, but not actually involved in the placing or servicing of the site. So, but I know, in particular sort of Agile perspective, we will look at all the new sites and replacements on old of the utility blocks. We have, obviously, these sites come with utility blocks, so they're great ideas for that travelling community to have on site as a utility blocks. Does somebody else want to say something?
I've just been passed the microphone, I don't know why. So,
I'm Paul Smith, I'm Chief Exec of Elim. Hello, Juliette. We're quite unusual in that I think we're the only housing association that has the provision of Egyptian travel accommodation as core business. It's something that, that we have a specialist team to manage, and we see it not as something that's stuck on the side of our activity, but something, central to what we do. And I guess we're becoming almost a monopoly provider in a large part of the southwest of England. We're also starting in Wales. Just to say what a pitch is basically a large piece of concrete with a connection for water and electricity to allow space for at least 2 mobile homes, sometimes park homes, sometimes caravans, sometimes something in between, quite indistinguishable. But there's also, on each site, there's an accommodation block. They're individual to each pitch, they're not shared accommodation. So what people have is a kitchen diner and a toilet and a shower room. And that's actually quite important because for quite a lot of traveller communities, it's actually against their culture to use their vehicles for toiletry. So having that extra space is really important. There are about 4,000 traveller families across the country who do not have a pitch at the moment. So there's huge demand for it, and we're expecting our level of provision, both by new developments and by taking over the management of local authorities, to rise from the figure that was up there of 88 to over 200 over the next 3 years. And we're obviously keen to find opportunities to do more. It's the community that it's still sort of acceptable to be racist about and who's still massively excluded. So you often find sites are nowhere near schools. All the things that we talk about, the 20-minute city, are all the things that absolutely don't apply to Egyptian traveller sites, more like the 2-hour city, because there's so much opposition to those sites going in locations from local populations that it's almost like the typical site is sandwiched between a motorway, a railway line, and a waste disposal site, and then there's a little triangle which is where the travellers' site is. So there's huge issues about giving those communities access to facilities as well. And we see ourselves standing alongside other advocates for much better provision for that community, as well as being a landlord and a provider. And of course, as a landlord, they pay rent, they pay council tax, they can also claim benefits. Some of them are so off-grid they don't want to claim benefits, which creates issues for them. But it's a community that we're very happy to work closely with and to serve.
Hello, I'm a recent graduate from UE, and it might be a bit naive question, but I think considering all the projects that we've seen today, and like the large kind of scale of the issues, what do you think is like why people go for like low-rising kind of solutions? I'm like thinking of if maybe is there any examples of high-rise solutions that can integrate these kind of services in a more kind of densified way?
Yeah, definitely. The low rise in this instance it's on the edge of the green belt for one, and also the client group involved. And I think the different client groups, you can have 2-3 stories with accessible lifts. The properties can be accessible just because they're over a few floors, but the nature and type of these residents require quite small communities as well, just from it's that sort of safe and secure feeling coming straight out of hospital. I think if you're in a development of 30, it doesn't work. We've gone sort of round in circles with numbers, and it seems that 6 to 8 is that safe, secure feeling, and that gives that. And also, I think it builds their confidence, builds people's confidence, not to be surrounded by too many properties. So I think, small scale to begin with, and those move-on accommodations, I think, will go higher rise and more floors, and can still be accessible to all, but it's just, it does seem to suit smaller scale developments and the nature of the complexity of the needs and requirement.
I think it's okay, we'll leave it there, Juliette. Thank you very much indeed.